Hello everyone, welcome to Frightful Whispers. I'm here to guide you into the shadows tonight. I know you're using this video to unwind and drift off to sleep. So, before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you? Now, get cozy, relax, and let the whispers of the night take over. I don't know how long it's been since I felt like myself. Since the accident, life hasn't been the same. It's like I've been floating, detached, living in a world that doesn't quite make sense anymore. My apartment is small, and it's just empty. The silence is almost suffocating. There are no voices here, no laughter, no sounds of my son running around, no warmth. Just cold air, thick with the weight of what's missing. I try to fill the silence in any way I can, and for some reason, I always end up at the radio. It used to be a hobby, something I enjoyed when I was younger, but now it's all I have. I spend hours tuning it, adjusting the dials, just to hear the hum of static, to hear the nothingness. The sound is strangely comforting, almost like it's alive. It's the only thing that doesn't make me feel so utterly alone. Tonight, like every other, I'm sitting in front of it again, staring at the old ham radio, fingers hovering over the knobs. I don't expect anything. I just need to drown out my thoughts. The accident, the crash, it's still fresh, still vivid. Claire, my wife, gone. My son, Adam, gone. Their laughter, their presence, gone. I twist the dial, hearing only static. I move it again and again. Nothing, just the white noise. It's getting colder in the room, but I barely notice. All I can hear is that damn static, and it feels like I'm the only one left in the world who's still alive to hear it. Then, something changes. It's so subtle at first, I think maybe I'm imagining it, but no. There it is. A voice. Barely there at first, but clear enough for me to hear my name. Elliot. I freeze. My heart skips. No one should know I'm here. No one could possibly know. It's just me in this empty room. Maybe it's my mind playing tricks on me. Maybe the grief's finally caught up with me. I lean in closer to the radio, my hands shaking now. Elliot. Please, help me. The voice. It's so familiar, but I can't place it. I should know it. I try to shake the feeling, but my chest tightens. This isn't right. My stomach churns, and I can't stop myself from turning the dial, desperate to understand what's happening. But the voice calls again, louder this time. Elliot, please. I'm breathless, my head spinning. I know that voice. I can feel it deep in my bones. It's Claire. It's Claire's voice. But it can't be. She's gone. I heard the crash. I felt the loss. There's no way this could be her. But it sounds like her. She's here. She's calling for me. I panic. My fingers fly to the dials again, desperately trying to find something that makes sense, trying to stop the noise, stop the voice. But the more I twist the knobs, the clearer the voice gets. It's no longer just an echo, it's real. It's as if she's standing right behind me, whispering in my ear, Elliot, it's me, come back to me. My blood runs cold, the room is suddenly suffocating, the air thick, like it's closing in on me. The radio is alive, the static is no longer just noise, it's alive. The walls feel like they're closing in, the shadows stretching unnaturally, as if the very fabric of reality is tearing itself apart. I stare at the radio, my hands trembling. My heart pounds in my chest. And then I hear it. A new voice. This one is different. This one sends a jolt of terror through me. The voice is no longer Claire's, it's mine. Elliot, help me. My own voice. My voice calling out in distress, calling for help, but it's not coming from me. It's coming from the radio, from the static. The sound of my voice, echoing in desperation, chills me to my core. It sounds like me, but it isn't me. It's wrong. It's distorted, broken, and it sounds like it's trapped. I try to pull away from the radio, but I can't. It's like the voice has hold of me, pulling me in, dragging me back to it. I press my hands to my ears, desperate to block it out, but the voice won't stop. It's everywhere now, surrounding me, suffocating me. The shadows in the room grow darker, twisting in unnatural ways. The static becomes unbearable, filling my ears with a deafening roar. And in that roar, I hear it again. My voice. I'm trapped here, Elliot. I'm the one who's trapped. I'm shaking now. My vision is blurring. I can't breathe. The voice, my voice, fills the room, and I realize with growing horror that something has changed. The static is no longer just noise. It's a presence, and that presence is inside me. I am you, the voice says, and the words twist in my mind, making my head spin. I've switched places with you. The room shifts, warps. I look at my reflection in the window, and for the first time, I don't recognize myself. My features blur, twisting into something different, something wrong. I try to scream, but no sound comes out. I can't move. I can't breathe. The radio hums louder now, louder than ever, and I feel it, the pull. The static is taking me in, swallowing me whole, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. And then, just before the static consumes me completely, I hear it again, my voice, but now it's distant, fading. Help me. I've switched places with him. And just like that, I understand. It wasn't Claire's voice. It wasn't a mistake. The radio, this thing, it's been waiting for me. Waiting for someone to be drawn in, someone desperate enough to listen. And now, I am the one who's trapped. I am the one who's part of the static, forever lost in the white noise. And whoever hears this next, whoever finds the radio, will become the next victim. Because the entity, the one in the static, is still here, and it's waiting for the next soul to fall into its grasp. And I know, deep down, that it's only a matter of time before the voice calls to them too. Just like it called to me. Just like it will keep calling. It's hard to remember when it all began, when I first started hearing those voices. I guess, in a way, it feels like they've always been with me, just waiting for the right moment to speak. But I can tell you when it got real, when it started to tear my world apart. I sit in my apartment, alone. The air is stale, thick with the weight of silence. It's always been silent, ever since the accident. It's just quieter now. No voices, no laughter, no footsteps, nothing. Just the hum of the radio, static whispering to me like a ghost in the darkness. I've become addicted to it, somehow. It's the only sound that doesn't make me feel insane. It's the only thing left that connects me to the world, even if that world is no longer mine. It's just noise. White noise. Sometimes I think I'm reaching for something, someone, in those waves, searching for a sign that something, anything, is out there. But all I find is static. And for a while, that was enough. I thought I was just grieving, that I was hearing things because of the grief, but the voices, they don't feel like they're mine anymore. Tonight, like every other night, I sit in front of the radio. I twist the dial aimlessly, moving from frequency to frequency, but I'm not expecting much. Just the usual static, the usual hum. But then, something changes. It's so faint at first. I wonder if it's just my mind playing tricks on me. But no, there's something there, a voice, software. Barely a whisper, but it says my name. Elliot. My heart stops. I freeze, fingers still on the dials, pulse thundering in my ears. Who the hell knows I'm here? Who could be calling me? Elliot, please help me. I lean in closer, unsure if I'm imagining it. But it's real, and it sounds like her, Claire, my wife. I swear, it's her voice, but it can't be. She's gone. She's been gone for months now. Gone in the blink of an eye in that car crash that stole everything from me. But it's her voice, and it's so desperate, so filled with pain. I almost drop the radio. My hands are shaking. The static is louder now, swarming around me like a cloud, thick and suffocating. The voice speaks again, this time more urgently, as if it's right here, as if Claire is right here, begging me, calling to me from somewhere just out of reach. Elliot, please help me. I don't know what to do. My hands tremble as I adjust the dial, moving it, trying to find something, anything that makes sense, but it only gets worse. The voice keeps calling my name, louder now, more frantic. Elliot, it's me. My breath catches in my throat. I don't know if I can handle this. I don't know if I can keep listening to this, but I can't stop. It's her voice. It's Claire's voice. I close my eyes, willing myself to believe this is some kind of trick. Some trick of the static. But the voice? No, it's not just the voice anymore. The air around me is thickening. It's growing heavier, like the room is closing in on me. My vision starts to blur at the edges. The shadows in the corners of the room stretching unnaturally long, like they're reaching for me. I hear a low growl in the static, something wrong. And then, the voice warps. It distorts. It's still Claire's voice, but now it sounds different. Familiar, but wrong. It's not just her, it's me. Elliot, help me. My own voice, but it's distorted, twisted, broken. It's calling out from the static and it sounds desperate. It sounds like me, but I know it's not me. This isn't real. None of this is real. But the voice doesn't stop. It keeps calling to me. It sounds like me, but it's like something's taken my voice and is using it against me. It's like something else is in my head, and I can't shake the feeling that the voice isn't just coming from the radio. It's coming from inside me, deep inside, twisting my thoughts. Elliot, help me. I need you. My heart hammers in my chest. I feel like I'm suffocating. I can't breathe. The shadows are no longer just shadows, they're moving. I feel them creeping closer. The walls are warping, stretching, bending like the world itself is coming apart. The static grows louder, deafening, and the voice, my voice, her voice, all twisted together, becomes a growl, a deep, guttural whisper that crawls up my spine and wraps around my throat. I am you, Elliot. I snap my head toward the radio, my eyes wide in terror, my pulse hammering in my ears. The voice continues, a twisted mockery of me, of everything I once was. I've been waiting for you. Waiting for me? Waiting for me? I can't breathe, I can't think, I can't move. I try to look away, but the voice holds me. It pulls me closer, and the air is thick now, alive, full of darkness and hunger. It feels like the walls are closing in. The room isn't just a room anymore. The floor is shaking beneath me. The shadows are alive, crawling up the walls, and the air is teeming with whispers. I've already taken you, Elliot. You've already become part of me. My eyes widen in realization. I feel it now, the static. It's inside me. It's filling my mind, my soul, my body. It's everywhere. It's pulling me into the noise, into the darkness. And then, just as the world starts to collapse around me, I hear it again, my own voice, but it's a scream now. Help me! But it's not just a scream, it's the scream of someone who's already lost. Someone who's already been consumed. Someone trapped inside the static. And I know I know, with a cold, sickening certainty, that the entity is no longer just in the radio. It's in me. It's in my mind. It's in my soul. And now I'm no longer Elliot Marks. I am part of the static. I am the static. And whoever finds this next, whoever hears that same voice, will be the next to join me. Because the entity never leaves, it never stops, it just waits, patiently, for the next soul to slip into the static. And I'm waiting too. Trapped, lost in the noise, waiting for someone else to listen, to become part of it. Just like I did. And it's only a matter of time before they do, before you do. It's strange how silence can become suffocating. I never realized how deeply it could settle into your bones until that night, the night everything changed. The night I heard them, the voices. I don't know how long it's been since the accident, the crash, the event that tore my life apart in an instant. Claire, my wife, my world, gone. And Adam, our son, the laughter that filled our home, gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. There was no escaping it. So I did what I always did when things got too heavy. I turned to my radio. I'd been a ham radio enthusiast for years. It was a distraction, a way to drown out the noise in my head. But lately, it wasn't just static anymore. It was voices. Strange voices, calling out from the other side of the airwaves, pulling me closer, deeper into their web. But that night, it was different. I was sitting in the same worn-out chair, the one that had become my prison, staring at the same radio I'd tuned to 1,000 different frequencies. It was my only connection to the outside world, the only thing that made the silence bearable. I adjusted the dials absent-mindedly, like I had 1,000 times before, half expecting the same mind-numbing static to fill the room. Then I heard it. Elliot. It wasn't much, just a whisper at first, a soft murmur barely cutting through the static. But it was enough. My name. Someone knew I was here, someone was calling me. The voice was so familiar. I felt my heart stop for a moment. I leaned in closer, unsure if I was hearing things, if the grief had finally cracked my mind, but no. There it was again. This time, louder, clearer. Elliot, please, help me. My stomach churned. The voice. It sounded like her. It sounded like Claire. But it couldn't be. She was gone. She was gone. I pulled my hands away from the radio, my body trembling as I stumbled back. I don't know why I didn't turn it off. Maybe I was afraid to. Maybe I was drawn to it, like a moth to a flame. I don't know. All I knew was that the voice, her voice, was still there, still calling. Elliot, please, help me. I felt a cold sweat form on the back of my neck as I hesitated. Could it be? Could she really be speaking to me through the radio? I reached for the dial, twisting it frantically, desperate to understand what was happening. But the more I turned it, the worse it became. The voice grew louder, clearer, but it shifted. It was still Claire's voice, but now, it was wrong. It was distorted. Elliot. I froze, the blood draining from my face as the voice twisted further, warping into something I didn't recognize. It was no longer just Claire. It was me, my own voice calling to me from the static. Elliot, help me. My hands shook as I adjusted the dial once more, trying to make sense of what was happening, trying to block out the sound of my own voice echoing in the air. But the more I tuned the frequency, the louder it became, until I could barely think straight. And then, as if in answer to my panic, the voice on the radio grew darker. It didn't sound like Claire. It didn't sound like me. It sounded alive, like something that wasn't human. I am you, Elliot. You cannot escape. I couldn't breathe. I tried to move, to pull away from the radio, but it was like the air was thickening around me, like the walls themselves were closing in. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch unnaturally, swirling and twisting, reaching for me, pulling me into the blackness. I was trapped in the room, trapped with the voice, with it. I am the static, Elliot. I am the voice in your head. I am everything you fear. The room was spinning now, my vision blurring as I fell back against the wall. The voice, the entity, was all around me, drowning me. It wasn't just the radio anymore. It was in the air, in the walls, in my mind. No, no, I whispered, but the words felt foreign. My voice, once steady, was trembling. I couldn't tell where it came from anymore. My thoughts, or something else. Something darker, pulling at the edges of my sanity. I've been waiting for you, Elliot. Waiting for you to hear me, to understand. The static was deafening now, a storm of sound that raged in my ears. The shadows, now crawling along the floor, seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the radio's hum. The air was thick with it, heavy with the sense of something ancient. Something that had always been there, waiting, biding its time. I reached out blindly, searching for something to hold on to, something to anchor me to reality. But the room was gone. The walls were no longer solid. They pulsed, vibrated, as if they were made of liquid. The static crept up my spine, cold like fingers, pulling me deeper, dragging me into the void. You're already part of me, Elliot. You've always been. And now you'll join me in the static. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The radio hummed louder, the walls throbbed with the sound, and the shadows grew closer. The room was no longer just a room, it was a prison, a trap. And I knew, with sickening clarity, that I was no longer Elliot Marks, not anymore. I was the entity. I was the static. And I had awoken. It's hard to say when the line between reality and nightmare blurred for me. Maybe it was the first time I heard my own name whispered through the static. Or maybe it was the moment I realized that I had already slipped into something I could never return from. I thought the radio was just an escape, a hobby, a way to fill the void left by the accident. But now I see that it was never just a distraction. It was the beginning of the end. I sit here in my apartment, surrounded by shadows that no longer feel like mere darkness. There's something else now. They move, shift, reach. I swear they're watching me. They're waiting. And every time I look at the radio, I feel it, the pull, the hum, the pressure in the air that's thick with it, the entity. I can't get rid of it, I can't stop it. It's everywhere, inside me, in the air, in the walls. It was supposed to be just a machine, just static. But that was before the voices started. Elliot. It wasn't loud at first, just a soft murmur, a whisper that cut through the static and rattled me to my core. The kind of voice that sends a chill crawling down your spine. I froze, staring at the radio, wondering if I was losing my mind. No one knew I was here. I didn't know who could be calling me. It didn't make sense, but it was clear, so clear, the second time. Elliot, please help me. I should have known then. I should have turned it off, should have walked away. But I didn't. Because the voice, it sounded like her. It sounded like Claire, my wife, my beautiful, kind wife, whose voice had once filled this empty space, whose laughter had been the soundtrack of my life. I wanted it to be her. I needed it to be her. But it couldn't be, not really. She's gone. It's been months now. The crash took her from me. Took them both from me, my wife, my son, Adam. I hadn't felt alive since that night. It was as if my soul had been torn away with them. I thought the radio would be a distraction, a way to numb the ache. But now, It's not just the radio, the static, the hum. It's become a presence in the room. It fills the air, thick and suffocating, until I feel like I can't breathe without it. I don't remember when I first started hearing the voice again, when it became something else. But I know what it is now. It's not just Claire, it's not even me. It's it. And it's been here all along. The voice calls again, but this time, I don't have to search for it. It's already here, it's inside me, it's in the walls, it's in the shadows. And when I turn toward the radio, the static is no longer just sound. It's a living thing, a creature that has been feeding on my grief, my loneliness, pulling me deeper into its grasp. I stagger back from the radio, my heart pounding in my chest. I can't breathe, my legs won't move. The air feels thick, like it's pressing down on me, crushing me, and the voice, it doesn't stop. I am you, Elliot. I'm frozen. My breath comes in short, shallow gasps. I try to scream, but the sound doesn't reach my lips. The words, my words, are slipping away. I can hear the hum of the radio, but it's not a hum anymore. It's a pulse. It's alive, and it's speaking to me. The shadows move, crawling along the floor, stretching unnaturally, like they're coming for me. The walls bend, twist, like they're not solid anymore, and the voice, it changes. It's mine, but not mine. It's like it's speaking through me, taking me over, pulling me in. I've been waiting for you, Elliot. You're already part of me. My mind races, desperate to hold on to something. Anything. But the more I try to focus, the more the room shifts around me. It's like I'm standing in the middle of a dream that's turning into a nightmare, where nothing makes sense, where everything is slipping out of reach. I reach out for the walls, but my hands don't touch them. They sink into the surface like the walls are made of something liquid, something that can't hold my weight. My reflection in the window is wrong. It's me, but it's not. The man staring back at me smiles, but it's not my smile. It's twisted, hollow, like the thing that wears my face is mocking me, taunting me. I told you, Elliot, you can't escape. You never did. I want to scream, I want to run, but my feet are glued to the floor, and the static grows louder, and the voice, it doesn't stop. It keeps telling me things. Things I don't want to hear, things I already know. You were never real, Elliot. None of this was real. It was all part of the trap. You were always mine. I can't breathe. The walls are closing in, the shadows are reaching for me, and the voice, the thing inside my head, has become a roar. It's everywhere. It's in the radio, in the air, in my blood. I am you, Elliot. I always have been. The ground beneath me tilts like I'm falling, but I can't move. I can't scream. I can only hear the voice. It's louder now, drowning out everything else. It is everything. It is all there is. I am the static. I am the noise. I am the nothing that fills the void. The air presses in on me, and the room warps and twists like a bad dream. I can't focus. I can't think. I can feel myself. No, I can feel it, slipping away. The man in the reflection isn't me. He's wearing my face, but he's not me. And I realize with sickening clarity that I haven't been me for a long time. I am the entity now. The radio hums, the static pulsates, and the shadows dance around me, closing in. And somewhere, in the twisted abyss, I hear my voice calling to me. But it's not mine anymore, it's it, and I am part of it now. I am no longer Elliot Marks. I am the static. I am the darkness that waits. And you, whoever hears this next, will soon understand. You'll become a part of it too. Just like I did, just like I was always meant to. I don't know when it happened, the moment I truly lost myself. Maybe it was when I first heard the whispers through the static. Or maybe it was when the voice stopped sounding like a trick of the mind and started feeling like something real, something that wanted me. I can't pinpoint the exact moment I fell into this nightmare, but now that I'm here, I know I can never escape. I should have known better. I should have stopped when I heard it calling my name, but I didn't. And now, I'm trapped in a place where the line between reality and the static has vanished. It started out so simply, like any other night. I was sitting in front of the old ham radio trying to tune out the silence that had swallowed my world. Claire, my wife, and Adam, my son, were gone. I've lost track of how many days it's been since the accident, since the crash that took everything. All I've had left is this damn radio. I thought it was a way to escape, to drown out the loneliness that gripped me. I didn't know it would pull me into something far worse than I could have ever imagined. The first time I heard it, the voice, that whisper through the static, it barely registered. Just a murmur in the background, easy to ignore. But then it came again, clearer this time, and this time it called my name. Elliot. My heart stopped. I thought I was losing my mind. No one should have known I was here. No one could possibly know. My fingers trembled on the dials and my mind raced, wondering if it was just some twisted trick, a trick of the static. But no. I heard it again. Elliot, please, help me. It was a voice I knew, a voice I hadn't heard in months. It was Claire's voice, the same voice that used to comfort me, that used to fill this cold, empty apartment with warmth. But now it was coming from the radio. Impossible. I couldn't stop myself. I leaned in closer, trying to make sense of it. I knew it couldn't be her. She was gone. She was gone. But I couldn't stop listening. I couldn't stop hoping that maybe, just maybe, this was her. A miracle. Something beyond explanation. Elliot, please, help me. It was her. It was Claire. It had to be. I was shaking, my breath coming in ragged gasps, but I twisted the dials, trying to make the voice clearer. I needed to hear more. I needed to know what was happening. But then the voice changed. It didn't sound like Claire anymore. It sounded like me. Elliot, help me. My voice. I jerked back from the radio, my hands trembling as I looked down at the dials. This couldn't be real. It didn't make sense. It was impossible. But the voice, it was mine. It sounded like me, but it was wrong. It was twisted, distorted. The radio buzzed and crackled, pulling me deeper into the static, and then it came again. I am you, Elliot. I froze. The air around me seemed to thicken, the static growing louder, more oppressive. I could feel it crawling under my skin, suffocating me, twisting my mind. My heart raced, my thoughts were slipping, spiraling away from me, and the voice, my voice, kept talking. It wasn't Claire anymore. It wasn't even me. It was something else. You've always been part of me, Elliot. You just didn't know it. The room around me started to shift. The walls, no, they weren't walls anymore. They were moving. The shadows in the corners were alive, stretching and twisting in unnatural ways. My head spun, my vision blurred. I couldn't tell where the room ended and the shadows began. I tried to move, but my legs wouldn't obey. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on me from all sides, and I couldn't escape it. The voice, my voice, was still there. It was everywhere. It was inside me. It was in my mind. You can't escape, Elliot. You're already part of me. I reached out, trying to grab onto something, anything, to ground myself. But my hands sank into the walls. They felt wrong, like I was touching something liquid, something that shouldn't exist. I stumbled back, but I couldn't break free. The room was closing in on me, and the voice, my voice, kept repeating the same words. You were never meant to be free. You were always meant to belong to me. The radio crackled again. and I saw something that made my heart stop in my chest. The reflection of myself in the window, my own reflection, wasn't me anymore. The face staring back at me was wrong. It was twisted. It was smiling, but it wasn't my smile. It was something darker, something that didn't belong. It was it, the entity. I knew then, I understood. The static, the voices, they were never just a distraction. They weren't just a way for me to cope with the grief. No, they were a trap. A way for it to take over. The entity had been waiting for me to slip, waiting for me to listen. And now, it had consumed me. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. There was nothing left to fight with. I had already lost. And then, in a final, suffocating moment of clarity, I heard it again. Elliot. It wasn't Claire's voice this time. It wasn't even my own. It was the entity's voice, and it was speaking through me. You're mine now. You always have been. I could feel myself fading, slipping away as the static swarmed around me. The walls were gone now. The shadows consumed everything. There was nothing left of who I was. I was no longer Elliot Marks. I had become the entity. I had become the static. And now I am waiting. Waiting for the next soul to hear the whisper. For the next victim to fall into the trap. For someone else to become part of the entity just like I did. Because the entity is always waiting. It is never finished. It never lets go. It waits for the next person, for the next scream, for the next voice to be swallowed by the static. And I am the next victim. But not anymore. I am the one who waits. It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment when everything started to unravel. The world didn't just collapse on me all at once. It was slow, like a sickness creeping through the edges of my mind. I thought I was just grieving. I thought I was just hearing things. Misplaced sounds, echoes of a life that no longer existed. But I should have known. I should have listened when the static started talking to me. And now, here I am, trapped in a place I can't escape, surrounded by darkness and whispers. It began with the radio. It always comes back to the radio, doesn't it? The hum of static, the crackle of voices that aren't supposed to be there. I had been tuning it for hours, just trying to drown out the silence that had taken over my life after the crash. Claire, my wife, Adam, my son, they were gone in the blink of an eye. The radio, at first, was just a distraction. A way to fill the unbearable quiet, but now it's alive, and I am trapped in its world. The voices were the first sign. I didn't know what to make of it when I first heard the whisper through the static. My name, faint but clear. Elliot. It could have been a trick of the mind, but it wasn't. It was real. That whisper felt like a hand reaching out from beyond, and I couldn't pull away. I leaned in closer, heart racing, as I tried to understand what was happening. Then it came again, louder, clearer. Elliot, please, help me. I froze. I knew that voice. I knew it. It was Claire's voice. But how could it be? She was gone. She couldn't be here. I must have been imagining it, my mind breaking under the weight of the grief. But then it came again and again, more frantic each time, more desperate. I reached for the dials, trembling, my hands shaking as I tried to make sense of it. But the more I tuned, the clearer the voice became. It wasn't just Claire's voice anymore, it was mine. Elliot, help me. My own voice, calling to me from the static. And that's when I knew something was terribly wrong. My reflection in the glass of the radio flickered, and I realized with a jolt that it wasn't just my voice. It was me. I could see myself, twisted, contorted, as if the radio was somehow warping everything around me. And then, the voice changed. It wasn't Claire, it wasn't even my own. It was darker now, more menacing. The voice whispered my name once again, but this time, it wasn't a plea. You are mine now, Elliot. I couldn't breathe. The walls of my apartment seemed to close in on me. The shadows in the corners of the room stretching longer, darker. I tried to scream, but the sound wouldn't come. The static roared louder, vibrating in my skull, and I felt my body start to betray me. I was no longer in control. The entity, it had taken me. I couldn't tell where the radio ended and I began. I couldn't feel my hands or my feet anymore. Everything was static. The whispers, the voices. They weren't just outside anymore. They were inside my head, crawling beneath my skin. And then, in the darkest part of my mind, I understood. I wasn't Elliot Marks anymore. I was the entity that had been waiting, the entity that had been using the radio, using me, to pull in the next soul. And I waited. I waited for someone to tune in, for someone else to hear the whispers, to feel the pull. Because once you hear it, once you let the static in, there's no escaping it. There was someone else out there now. Someone who had heard the call. Someone who, like I once was, would be next. And then, it happened. The room around me shifted, bending and warping in ways I couldn't understand. My body didn't feel like mine anymore. It was like I was watching myself, like I was trapped behind a screen, unable to move. The static had swallowed me whole, and now I was nothing more than a vessel. The walls cracked, the shadows reached for me, and I heard it again, the voice. It was his voice now. Help me, please. I couldn't scream, couldn't move, couldn't escape. It was no longer a voice through the static. It was my voice, but it was the voice of someone new. Someone who had just heard the call. The entity had found its next victim, and they were already trapped, just like I was. And I had become the entity. The static had consumed me, and I was now part of it. The static never stops. It is always waiting, always watching. Because the entity doesn't just call to the lost, it waits for the next person to listen, the next person to slip, and when they do, when you do, you'll hear it. Help me, please. But by then it will be too late. Because you'll be just like me. You'll be part of the static. Forever. And there's no escaping it. There's no going back. The entity is always waiting. And soon it will be your turn. Thank you for venturing into the shadows with me here at Frightful Whispers. Remember, the darkness holds secrets, but also whispers truths to those who dare to listen. If tonight's tale sent shivers down your spine, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the fire of fright alive. Rest easy, but keep one eye open, for the night is never truly still. Until we meet again, stay vigilant, stay curious, and let the whispers guide you.